Let's take a look at the VLOOKUP function and common reasons you might run into errors with it. For our first example, we'll take a look at the VLOOKUP function, looking at product code and pulling over the description category into this table over here. We'll start with this example to make sure that we're using the VLOOKUP function correctly. To start with our equal sign, type VLOOKUP. Our lookup value is going to be what we want to look up. And we want to look that up in this table. So we'll highlight that and we'll hit F4 to lock references. The column index number, so the column we'll be looking into is column 2 for our description. And then we'll want to type either false or 0 for exact match. And close that. And we can send that formula down. And if we copy this into our next cell over here and change our column to 3 and pull that down, we can see that we now have done a VLOOKUP to join these two data sets. Now let's look at some common reasons where we could have run into errors. Our first example will be if there's reference errors. Now if we click back into this formula, we can see that this looks the same where we had this product code looking to this table. But as we go down in our formula, we can see that in this case, the reference array was not locked. So as we pulled our formula down, this array kept going down and we ran into issues. So to fix that, we want to make sure that we are locking the table which we're looking at. And we can do that by hitting the F4 key. And then if we pull our formulas down after locking that, we can see that that now solves that issue. A second issue we might run into is not using the correct array. So if we're looking at this formula here, we can see that we have our product code, but we're missing the product code column here. So we're asking you to pull over a description or category, but we're not giving it what the lookup value is. So let's pull that array over to the left, and we'll make sure that this is locked once again. So we just want to look into that specific array for the table. And let's lock this. And let's pull this array over, send that down, and here we can see that that fixed that issue. Another issue you might run into the VLOOKUP is one of the limitations with this formula in that it can only look from left to right. So if our product code is on the right-hand side, the VLOOKUP function will not work correctly as it will be looking for its product code and only to the right. So we cannot ask it to look to the left. And that's where a function like the XLOOKUP could come in handy as that is more flexible. So to work around this, we could reorder our columns, putting our product code to the left-hand side. And then we would just need to make sure that we update our array. So let's click into that. And then we should make sure that we're asked it to look into the right column. So this would be our second column for description. And same thing for this. Let's pull that over and look to column 3 for our category. Pull that down, and that solved that issue. So always make sure that the first column that your lookup value is the left-hand side of your data, and you only can pull data to the right of that. Now, another issue you might run into is you're doing your VLOOKUP and we have our arrays, we're looking at the right columns, but we're still not finding these values. And if we click into our product codes, we can see that those both match, and we might be wondering what is causing the issue. And if you're noticing that, it can be good to check into the formula bar up top and make sure that there's no extra spaces at the end. So if we click into this product category, we can see that there is an extra space after the D here. So let's hit backspace to remove that. And here we can see that we have a few other records that have those spaces. So once we delete those, that makes our VLOOKUP function happy. And the last example we'll take a look at is if there's duplicate values or non-existing values in our data set. Now, as we're looking through this VLOOKUP, we can see that we have our golf club, and over here we have two different golf club options. So this being our product code that we're looking up, and we have two areas which VLOOKUP could find it. Now, the VLOOKUP only looks from top to bottom. So when it finds the first golf club product code, it's going to pull over these records. So if we did have a duplicate in our data set, it's only going to pull the top. So if you are returning data that you are not expecting, that could be the case for your data. Now, if we know that this was our updated product code description category, we could paste over this up here to pull over that data, which could solve it. And another handy function that we can use is we highlight over our product codes. We could go into our conditional formatting and to highlight cell rules and duplicate values. And that can be something that can help us check if there are duplicate values in our data set. And the last thing to note is if you're running a VLOOKUP and you've gone through all those checks and you still aren't finding something, you could actually just not have what you're looking up in your data set. So if we look for this product code in here, if we try to find that, we can see that that does not exist. So if you've exhausted all those options, the last thing to do is double check that that data does actually exist and that is returning an error as it should if it's not finding that data. So that was going through all the common errors that you could run into using the VLOOKUP and how to solve them.